Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into Adam Grant's Think Again. In this book, it has a pretty bold idea at its core. It argues that in a world that's changing faster than ever, maybe the most crucial skill isn't learning, but unlearning and questioning what we think we know.
Okay, picture this. It's August 1949. We've got 15 of America's absolute best firefighters. These are the smoke jumpers, parachuting into a forest in Montana. The job seems straightforward. Put out a fire started by a lightning strike. But what they think is just another day at the office, well, it's about to turn into a desperate fight for their lives.
All of a sudden, the foreman, a guy named Wagner Dodge, he sees it. The fire leaps across this gulch and just rockets towards them. I mean, we're talking fast enough to burn through 2 football fields in less than a minute. So as his crew is scrambling, running for their lives, Dodge does something totally shocking. It goes against everything they've ever been trained to do.
You gotta understand, for a firefighter, your tools, they're everything. They're practically part of you. Dropping them it's unthinkable. But Dodge realized in that split second, those trusty tools had become dead weight. They were actually making them slower. So what happened? Most of the crew, they hesitated. They just couldn't let go of their tools, of their training. And tragically, only 2 of them made it out alive with Dodge. Now, this story, it's not really just about a fire, is it? It's a perfect metaphor for what this book is all about. It's about how the very things, the tools, the beliefs that we rely on, that have always worked for us, can suddenly become the very things that hold us back when the world changes around us.
Okay, let's get into it. Think about it. We're constantly updating everything, right? Our phones, our apps. But what about the most important operating system of all? Our own mind. When it comes to our knowledge, our opinions, we're strangely reluctant to hit that update button.
I mean, you'd laugh if you saw someone seriously using Windows 95 today, right? But how many of us are walking around with opinions we formed back then in a world that's completely different now? Psychologists have a name for this. They call it seizing and freezing. We grab onto an idea that feels good, that makes sense at the time, and then we freeze. We build a wall around it. And that's exactly how our thinking gets old and fragile.
So why is it so hard to update our beliefs? Well, Adam Grant says it's because when we feel our core beliefs are challenged, we almost unconsciously slip into these specific, rigid roles. He's identified 3 of them that we all fall in. First, there's the preacher. That's when we're giving sermons, trying to protect our sacred ideas. Then, there's the prosecutor. We go on the attack, pointing out all the holes in someone else's argument. And finally, the politician, who's just trying to win over the crowd, get people on their side. Now look at those 3. What's the one thing they all have in common? None of them are actually looking for the truth. It's all about being right. The goal is to win, pure and simple, not to learn.
And this isn't just theory. This is the exact trap that brought down BlackBerry. Remember them? When the iPhone showed up, BlackBerry's leaders went into full preacher mode, talking about how great their physical keyboard was. They prosecuted the whole idea of a touchscreen, saying, oh, it'll kill the battery. And they acted like politicians, only listening to the fans they already had, completely ignoring the billions of potential users who were excited about something different.
And you know, this isn't just about being stubborn. It's a deep, weird quirk in how our brains are wired. In fact, Charles Darwin pointed it out more than 100 years ago. This tendency for our confidence to get way ahead of our actual knowledge, well, today it has a famous name.
It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And here's how it works. The moment we learn just a little bit about a topic, our confidence shoots through the roof. Grant calls this climbing Mount Stupid. We get to the top of this peak of overconfidence, and we're so sure we've got it all figured out that we can't even see how much we don't know. And if you don't know what you don't know, you're never going to stop and ask yourself, hey, could I be wrong here?
Okay, so if we're all prone to preaching, prosecuting, and climbing up Mount Stupid, what's the way out? How do we get down from there? Grant says the answer is to make a conscious choice to step into a totally different mindset, a 4th one.
And no, thinking like a scientist doesn't mean you need a lab coat and beakers. It's a way of thinking. It means you start treating your opinions not as facts, but as hypotheses, as ideas that need to be tested. You actually go looking for evidence that you might be wrong. Why? Because finding out you're wrong is the quickest way to find out what's right.
And this isn't just a nice idea, it gets incredible results. Check this out. There was an experiment with Italian entrepreneurs. They split them into 2 groups. One group got trained to think like scientists, to treat their business plan like a theory and their product like an experiment. The result was just stunning. That group changed their strategy. They pivoted more than twice as often, and they ended up earning over 40 times more money than the other group, all because they weren't afraid to rethink.
The real secret here is detachment. You have to separate your ego from your ideas, detach who you are today from who you were yesterday. Once you do that, being wrong isn't a personal attack anymore. It's not an ego blow. It's just data. It's a sign that you're moving forward. It's actually exciting because it means you just learned something. So how do you actually do this? A big part of it is knowing the difference between good and bad conflict. Grant talks about building a challenge network. These are people you trust, who you know have your back, but who you give permission to tear your ideas apart. The goal is what he calls task conflict, arguing about the ideas, the work. That's constructive. What you want to avoid is relationship conflict, where it gets personal and emotional. One of those makes you smarter, the other just makes you angry.
Okay, but what about trying to get someone else to rethink? Well, going in like a prosecutor is pretty much guaranteed to backfire. A much, much better way is something called motivational interviewing. It's a technique that's all about being genuinely curious. You listen, you ask open-ended questions, and you help people find their own reasons for changing their mind. You're not pushing them. You're more like a guide, helping them find the key to a door they didn't even realize was unlocked.
Now, this whole idea of rethinking, it's not just for business meetings or debates. The most powerful and maybe the hardest place to apply this scientist mindset is in our own lives, to our biggest, most personal decisions.
A lot of us, without even knowing it, fall into something called identity foreclosure. It's when we decide who we are and what we're going to do way too early and then just lock it in. We shut the door on any other possibilities. It gives us this intense tunnel vision, and we miss all these other paths that might have actually made us happier. We stick with the plan, not because it's the best one, but just because we've already come this far.
And where does it start? You know, it often starts with that classic question we ask kids. What do you want to be when you grow up? Think about that wording. It suggests that a job is an identity, something you are, instead of a collection of things that you do. It pushes kids to pick a label and stick with it, long before they've had any chance to really figure things out.
So what's the fix? It's to bring that scientist mindset home. Instead of one fixed identity, imagine having several possible selves you're exploring. Instead of a rigid 5 or 10-year plan, how about running little experiments? Shadow someone for a day, start a small side project, and maybe schedule a life checkup for yourself once or twice a year. Just stop and ask, hey, am I still growing here? Does this path still make sense for the person I am now, not the person I thought I'd be 5 years ago?
And that's really the heart of it all. If you can look back at the person you were a year ago and kind of cringe a little, that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. It's proof that you've learned something, that you've grown. Rethinking isn't weakness. It's the engine that drives us forward.
So, in the end, the power of knowing what you don't know. It's not about winning every argument. It's about being flexible enough to keep up with a world that refuses to stand still. That ability to think again, that's not just a nice-to-have skill anymore. It might just be the most important tool we have to build a better life and a better world.